Hello and welcome to the Spring Revolution. The Spring Revolution was a concept I came up with whilst watching hours of political debates and really thinking actually, it's interesting that we elect these people to be in charge of our lives, in charge of our destinies in a sense, from a country perspective. But actually a lot of the time we sit back and just let other things happen to us. We don't take control of our lives. And the concept of a revolution really came up. But this is a revolution of ourselves. This isn't a revolution in terms of a societal revolution. This is really us taking responsibility for our lives, putting ourselves firmly back in control of what's going on in our lives, shaping our destinies and shaping our futures. It's been shown time and time again that those people who can actually have mastery over their subconscious and conscious brain, and also in terms of the way they view the world, which is fundamentally important, go on to be very successful with their lives, and they really lead and develop themselves in ways that they know will make them a success. So the Spring Revolution is not a revolution of society, it is an internal revolution within inside of ourselves, one that really shapes our future, and this is a personal, very personal revolution. One of the fundamental cornerstones of this Spring Revolution is understanding yourself, understanding what shapes your behaviour, what shapes your values, what you've really learnt over the years and how this has affected you. A lot of this is going to be good, but a lot of this is also going to be very detrimental to you. We all develop limiting beliefs in ourselves because of the messages that we've received either internally or externally, or the way that we've actually perceived an event that's happened in our lives. And therefore what we need to do is actually truly understand what shapes our behaviours and make sure that we can actually address that, make sure that we're conscious of what we're actually doing on a day-to-day basis. And there are a number of tools that will be used through the Spring Revolution, and I'll teach you, which will actually help you understand yourself and understand the way you react to certain situations so that you can actually adapt yourself as you want to achieve the goals that you really want. We also need to make sure that we understand where we've come from, evolutionary and also socio-politically and economically, what factors have affected us, how we've actually worked with those and often actually worked against those. But if you understand yourself and understand your background, it can actually help you identify certain patterns of behaviour that you may want to change, you may want to adapt, or you may want to develop. Carl Jung once said that the subconscious brain contains all the knowledge a person has ever gained, but also the knowledge of every other person that has lived. And if you think about this for a minute, this actually could be true, because our behaviours are not shaped just by ourselves, they're shaped by other people. And those people would have been influenced by other people to shape their behaviours and their knowledge, and we get taught by people who get taught by other people. So we continuously learn and develop, and we can tap into what Carl Jung describes as the knowledge of every other person that has lived. This is quite a complex thought to take on board, but if you think where an original thought came from, that didn't come from us, it was led by a whole series of factors that came together to give you that thought. So therefore there is a huge wealth of intelligence that we can constantly call into just by analysing this information, taking it on board and learning. But the subconscious brain is a huge part of the Spring Revolution. More often than not we work against ourselves in this particular area, and this is an area that I will really focus on through the spring events. The subconscious brain is actually a faithful servant. It does what you want it to, and it continually works to express our deepest beliefs and desires. It sets up images. The subconscious brain has a focus, so if you give it a focus, if you give it an image, it will actually work towards that. It's an incredibly powerful tool. Hypnotists, NLP specialists, cognitive behavior therapists all understand the power of the subconscious brain, but yet we really don't use this to our full extent. And a lot of what Spring does is actually focus ourselves on developing our connection with the subconscious mind to actually empower us and to be able to deliver our goals. A huge amount can be achieved, and the subconscious is really the fundamental cornerstone to the Spring Revolution and your personal revolution. It really works with you, and you can actually use this to give you the focus and the determination that you need to get into that state of flow where you can make things happen. Everyone knows that really empowering feeling when you're just determined to do something. You just entered into this sort of slightly hypnotic state almost, where you just felt that anything was possible. You were really in the state of flow. That's really your subconscious brain kicking in, guiding you through, helping you make decisions. It's a beautiful feeling, and part of what spring's about is making that more prevalent. But part of the issue is that we've developed fears, and one of the biggest fears that we develop is a fear of change. We all experience this on some level, but actually it's what we do with that fear. A lot of people decide to get limited by fear and don't extend their boundaries. And a lot of other people who are successful do feel fear. They're no different to us. Just what they do is react differently to it. They think, hang on, I'm scared of this or I'm fearful of this, but I'm going to extend my boundaries and overcome that fear. And this is what spring is also about, is overcoming the fear of change. Overcoming the fear of obstacles. What do you do when an obstacle gets put in your place? Some of us just retreat and decide it's failed, we can't do anything more. And part of what this is all about is actually overcoming those obstacles, because actually there's no real difficulty in overcoming an obstacle. It's only ourselves that are limiting ourselves. We actually can do anything we want if we actually allow ourselves to believe in it. So we put those obstacles in our place because we create them. Yes, they might be there for some other reason, but we create them as an obstacle. Typically, an obstacle could just be an event that has happened, but we frame it in a way that makes it a difficulty, a challenge. But actually there's no real reason that it isn't actually something more simple. Some people might think that folding a piece of paper, turning on a computer, is an obstacle for them to do what they want. I know these are very simplistic examples, but to some people that might actually be the case. To other people, they're not obstacles. So it's only the way that we frame the world or perceive the world that is very important. And the real thing that goes back to the subconscious mind is how we interpret the world and how we interpret the world and the events within inside it that are really going to have a positive effect. So if we can change the way that we view the world and make it a more positive world, then we're going to be fundamentally successful in achieving what we want. One of the other cornerstones that we really need to look at is how to communicate and deal with other people. Obviously in our world we can communicate with ourselves, and the internal communication really that takes place between the conscious and the subconscious is fundamentally important. But obviously also the other element is that actually how we communicate with other people that is of fundamental importance to us achieving what we want. We need to be able to communicate effectively, get our point across, and be positive and actually get the most out of our relationships. So the spring will also look at the emotional intelligence side of things. And also mindfulness, being aware of what we do, how we do it, but taking time for ourselves to be able to communicate effectively and to be able to manage our emotions through mindfulness techniques is obviously also very important. And as I mentioned, communicating. We need to be able to stand up there and communicate effectively. And spring, through a series of training programs on communication, emotional intelligence, mindfulness, can give you these powerful skills that you need to set your goals, to get you ready to achieve them, and to actually know when you've got them, but to also enjoy the journey as you go along, being mindful of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and see how it actually will shape you in your future and actually get you what you really want. Happiness. At a fundamental level, whatever people really think they're looking for, the fundamental thing they're looking for is happiness. Some people believe it comes in money, some people believe it comes in love, but actually happiness, there is a real secret. Happiness comes from when you accept yourself, you believe in yourself, and you don't limit yourself. And there are many different tools that we can utilize in order to get that, but this is our fundamental goal. So think of yourself as a phoenix rising from the flames. Think of yourself now as that phoenix spreading its wings, coming out of the fire, and start your personal revolution.